Hey everyone, welcome back to the pod. I'm here with Atrophy frontman Brian Zimmerman. I'm your host Andrew, and this is my sidekick Eli.
Hi.
Hello, Eli. How you doing?
Good.
So this podcast, just so you know, we try to bring old school thrash death and mix it up with some new kind of thrash and death metal bands that are out there. Everything's pretty heavy, but we kind of try to, as in the name, Riffs Across Generations. We try to take my generation and my son's generation, Eli, here, and kind of mash them together. And Atrophy is a perfect fix for that, coming from, when I was young to him now listening to your new stuff. So that's where we're coming from, and that's the base of the pod.
Cool.
So I guess with this, we'll start, we'll do a little bit of older history, and then we'll come up to the great new album. We'll talk about that pretty much in depth. So let's start and go all the way back to 1987. You guys put a couple demos together. And then it seemed like things accelerated pretty quick for you guys, especially the interviews I've heard you do over the years. Does that seem accurate, that it just came from like a couple demos, put them out there, and then it kind of exploded from there?
Yeah, so we only did one demo. We did, so we got Chris, it was Chris, me, and James, and then we wanted to get a double bass drummer. And we found Tim, and he had a friend, Rick, that he was playing with. And I started playing guitar in this band, and I moved to vocals because we wanted another solo guitar player. And I didn't do that. So I started singing, and after we found Tim and Rick, we had a talk and said, we wanted to really try to give it a go and try to make, something professional about it. Anyways, we got together, and I think we had, 4 or 5 songs written. And so we went to the studio and we recorded Chemical Dependency. And we sent that off to, we couldn't solicit the record labels at the time. That was a big no-no.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so we talked about it, and we decided, well, we'd just send all our demos to all the great magazines that were out back then. And we did that, and the buzz was instantaneous. The next month, all the magazines came out, and I think we were in every damn one we sent it to, which was amazing. And that got some huge buzz. And we went up to Phoenix to meet Gloria Bujanowski, who's now Gloria Cavalera, and asked if she wanted to manage us. And we gave her the demo tape, and she said she didn't think anything of it. She just put it up on the mantle or whatever. And her son, Dana, who was 12 at the time, took it in his room and listened to it. He's like, holy shit, Mom, you got to listen to this. And anyways, we got her managing us, and she was also managing Sacred Reich at the time. And our first show after that demo was released that we ever played outside of Tucson, we'd only done one show. We did a showcase for 3 record labels, and we obviously chose to go with Road Racer. And about 6 months after that, give or take, we were off to LA to record a full-length album.
Nice.
Socialized Hate.
So it did seem like it went, pretty quick and crazy. And that's a testament to your music, right? Your music and your lyrics and your vocals, I think. So that first album had Preacher, Killing Machine, Product of the Past. Those are all my favorite songs off that album. Back then, was there such thing as a single off the album? Did you pre-release any music before the album actually came out? Or in my memory, it's, I went into the record store and I bought the cassette tape, and it was just an experience listening to the whole cassette.
Oh, cool. No, we didn't get an opportunity to do that back then, but on the second album, we released a song. Well, we released a bunch of songs, but the label, I take that back. I think the record label I remember them doing a little cassette tape, and it had a little boy with a gun. And I think it had Killing Machine on it, and maybe Chemical and another song. And I think they just sent it around, but it was just some cheap paper insert. I have no idea who did the artwork for it, and there might be a couple floating around actually.
Yeah,
on the second album. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say I did started the fanzine a couple of years after I saw you guys, and we would get typically those from a record label. I don't know if they were singles, but they call them singles, and that's
Yeah,
kind of,
exactly.
what we got promoting. I just didn't know if it was back, predating when I was doing the fanzine that labels would do that kind of stuff.
So, and when we did Violent by Nature, the label actually released vinyl. I have one downstairs, and I think it's just a white album cover, and it has a purple logo on it. And I think it only had 2 or 3 songs on it, like Puppies and Friends and Violent by Nature. And they sent all that, and that was a promotional thing. And there are a few of them in existence. I've seen a few.
Nice. So that year after you released the album, you went on tour with Sacred Reich, a U.S. tour. And as I was reading back on it, I was looking at some of the old flyers and bands you played with, and that seemed like it was the heyday of thrash metal. I mean, you guys seemed to play with a bunch of my favorite bands from that era, like Eviction out of Pittsburgh, Dead Horse out of Houston, Dead Orchestra out of Wichita, Kansas. When you see the scene now and you look at the camaraderie, you look at the partnerships that bands have and they're playing, because back then I assumed that a lot of bands had respect for each other and they're kind of growing up and building the scene together. Does it feel like that now to you, or does social media and all the digital stuff, do you see the scene breaking apart still?
I think everybody's kind of out for themselves because it's so hard to exist in this day and age because everything's gotten so expensive. For us, example, our record label doesn't really give you a lot of money for recording. And as I'm going to ask them, but I don't know this for sure, but label support isn't there like it used to be. So you really have to go out and, just stay focused on what you're doing and look after your band. Back then, Gloria put us and Sacred Reich together because she was managing both of us. And I believe they were on Metal Blade at the time.
Yeah.
So we each got some money for tour support, and we chipped in on a tour bus, and off we went.
Nice. Yeah, that was the first metal band I saw in a club, was actually you. So
no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So great memories of that era. I was like 16 at the time. So
nice.
Yeah. So great show. I remember it. Anyways, so after that first album, you released your second, and that's the second album. I remember that's when, I don't know, Atrophy got put on a pedestal. That's when shit got real for Atrophy, and from my point of view. I remember all the hype, and I remember seeing like every magazine had ads for you guys, and we're doing interviews, and I just seemed like you guys were everywhere. And I think that's one of the best thrash metal albums ever written.
Wow. Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
so that was a great, and it's not only written musically, but I think the lyrics really shine through, and it wasn't what a lot of the thrash metal bands back then. There was no Satan, there was no that kind of stuff thrown in. It was really well thought out lyrics. So I, at that time I appreciated that, bands were sticking to or coming up with actual social issues that they were talking about.
Sure.
And then you guys, after that, you did I think you did a U.S. tour with, again, a couple of my other favorite bands that I think are super underrated, with Forced Entry and Coroner.
Yep.
Yeah, so that I didn't get to see that, so I'm bummed about that, but I learned about that. And then you guys headed off to Europe, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any good stories from that tour or going over to Europe, or what was that like?
So hanging out with Coroner and getting to play with those guys. They're they're a 3-piece band. And I'm like, how are they going to pull this off? Because I heard the album, and I'm like, how are they going to do this? And they did it. They were really tight, very technical. Their guitar player, Tommy, at the time, he was just phenomenal. I mean, wow. So I tell this story probably too much, but so we went over to Europe and we started touring, and we had a day off, and Gloria suggested we all go to a club. And we went to Bradford, England, and we had a day off. So we went to this place called the Wheaton Inn, and we walked in there, and I immediately went to the urinal, and this guy was standing at the middle urinal, and he was like 6'6", and I'm 6'2", and I'm like, and he says, "Hey, what brings you blokes in here?" And I used to have this really crazy metal jacket with a dragon on it, had spikes all over it. And, but anyways, Sacred went in with us, and I remember Phil brought in this plastic saxophone, and he was just being silly and playing his saxophone. And I, on the way out, I talked to our drummer and I said, "Dude, I don't like this place, man. I'm going back to the bus." So I walked back to the tour bus, and within 10 minutes, our roadie, Scott Goody, came running in, and he had blood all over his face. And Gloria was in a panic, and they had taken Phil Rind and pulled his leather jacket over his head and threw him through a plate glass window.
Wow.
So my understanding was that we were in England's version of the Hells Angels bar.
Great.
And they did not welcome us being on their turf. So, yeah, that got a little blurb on MTV, I believe. So
crazy.
yeah.
And Phil, from what I know of him, I interviewed him back during my fanzine days, but he's a pretty laid back guy, right? He's a pretty chill guy.
Yeah, he's not after trouble with anybody. Yeah. He's just very chill, and they just didn't like that we were, I've heard that, I think he had a back patch of Sacred Reich on there, and wearing colors in another bar where bikers are is a no-no.
Yeah.
So that may have spurred it on, or the plastic saxophone, I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe a combo of both.
Yeah.
What was it like being signed back then? Did bands actually make money from their music or by touring?
So we didn't get a lot of money from record labels. If we got, I'm just going to throw a number out, $25,000 for the first record, we'd go out to California and record. And if you came in under budget, well, where'd that money go? We didn't see it. And then we'd go out, and then we would get, like I said, we get tour support to go tour, and we get a tour bus. And back then we were getting $10 a day, and that's called per dayliums. But as far as support, like real support from any label, it was just non-existent unless you got to the upper echelon of, rock or something. So it was very, very difficult to pay your bills and be a rock star. So it was very tough.
Yeah, so I guess that's a lesson to anybody who's going to shows, why buying merch from bands is so important, right? So that means you guys eat or don't eat sometimes.
So back then we signed a merch deal, and Sacred Reich had a merch deal, and I believe everyone had a merch deal with this
Blue
outfit. Great Southern.
Oh, Great Southern. Okay.
And so they would follow us with every show, and they would sell our merch. And if they gave us $10,000 tour support, guess what? You'd never see any more money.
Yeah.
They would pay themselves back or whatever. And so as far as money goes, that's the only money we ever saw, was just the initial go record an album, and that's it.
Crazy. So then after that, it was like poof, you guys vanished, and there were a lot of thrash metal fans, all sad, I know. And I saw a couple interviews with you, and you basically had one word for it, and it was grunge. So how did that come into the scene, and how did that dissolve the scene away for especially thrash bands? Because I think some death metal bands were kind of bubbling up under the surface, and that's where some of the thrash kids went. But I think a lot of them went over to grunge metal.
They did. So especially when it comes to the labels, they want to invest their money to make money, and that being the new sound. So a lot of the labels were dropping bands, just boom, boom, boom. And we, unfortunately, were one of them. And I was kind of shocked that we didn't get more of a chance with our label, because you said, Violent by Nature did really well.
Yeah.
Like you said, I remember we used to go into this store called Bookman's or 7-Eleven, and we were in every magazine, every single one, and it, and now we're being dropped. Like, I don't know, it just kind of was a swift kick in the gut. So after that, about that time, Chris Likens headed off to medical school, or yeah, he was going to medical school, and we picked up another guitar player, but it just didn't have that edge that we always had.
Yeah.
And I had a 2-year-old daughter, and I had to make sure she was okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Kids, man. They take away all the fun of adults sometimes, right?
They can. Hint, hint.
So then there was this long gap, and it looks like 2015 you guys tried making a comeback with like 3 out of the 5 original members, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we did Maryland Death Fest, and then we did a short Canadian tour. We played some shows, and then we went over to China. And
wow.
In 2021, we put a European thing together, and boy, it was the wrong time to tour because of COVID-19.
COVID. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of wrecked everything, right?
It did.
Yeah. Okay, so let's flip this on its edge and push to the good stuff now. Did you do a demo for ASYLUM? Did you shop it around, or did Massacre just come to you and go, let's get this going again, let's get the band back on the road?
No. So Craig and Lum is a good friend of mine, and he was helping Toxic get another label. Some of the really high quality thrash bands, he was trying to help because he knows a lot of people, and he was in Exodus for a little while, and he's in Heathen, so he knows quite a few people, and he was asking me for material for a demo tape since 2018, 19, and so I did send him a couple things, and I sent him one song in particular when I was working with my new guitar player, and he's like, dude, finish that song and I can shop it and I'll get you guys a record deal. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we finished the song, and he did a lead on it for us, and we had Juan Ortega do the mix on it he did the Testament record, and we got a record deal.
Nice. And Massacre's a German label, correct?
They are, yeah.
And so is there going to be a separate, I don't know how it works, a distribution company in the United States that handles it, or does Massacre handle both domestic and foreign type bands?
So they're under an umbrella company. One is called Soul Foods, and there's another, I believe Sylvania does the distribution for them. But if you pull up, if you hit pre-order, you'll have everything from Amazon to Tower Records to
Target.
Yeah.
We saw Target wherever on there. Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. We were looking at that today, hoping we could hear like the rest of the album, because we've only heard 2 songs so far off the album. We haven't heard the rest of it. So we're trying to find out, is there any hiding on the internet somewhere where we could hear it? But yeah, we saw that list of like everywhere where it's going to be distributed and come out. And ASYLUM comes up. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, they're very adamant about, and they're very closed about releasing anything until the official record date. And I wish there was, but
yeah, no, that's fine. The official date, it drops March 15th, right? So not too far from now.
Yep.
Very cool.
We've heard 2 songs so far, Seeds of Sorrow and Punishment for All. Are those songs discussing social and political topics like your previous songs?
Every song on the album except for one is discussing social issues. And during COVID-19, there was such a, you pick it. There was so much to write about, because I don't think in my lifetime, I've never seen anything like COVID-19 shutting down the entire world. It was just a very crazy time, and there was a lot of stuff politically that was going on. So there was a lot of stuff to write about. Yeah.
Too much, right? It's too many topics to write about.
Yeah.
crazy time. So we talked about those two songs on our last episode, and in my opinion, they pick up where if Atrophy never got a break, this would be the third album. So it sounds a lot like that. Maybe not in the mix so much, but lyrically and musically, it sounds like it's just the next album. How did you get that sound with having all new members and everything? Did you write most of the music and I'm assuming the lyrics still? And I think a lot of it was attached to your vocal sound. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about, how you got that, remained that Atrophy sound, and also how do you keep your vocals going through all these years?
So I learned how to sing when I was off. I did a men's chorus, and then I did a cappella singing, where it's just 4 people. And I was very fortunate to work with a director who was a vocal coach and teaching me how to breathe, get a good breath in your diaphragm and then sing, not trying to. And I think before, when on the first 2 albums, I held back a little bit, and you'll hear it on this album for sure. And as far as getting the sound, so I am working with this new guitar player, Mark Coughlin, and he was in a thrash band like 16 years ago, and since then he's written some Gothenburg and some death metal stuff. But when I heard him play, his that right hand, it very much like Chris, the drill picking, the syncopated picking, and that's a lot of where our sound came from. Now in this album, since he's playing, he did all the rhythm tracks on this. He's adding a little bit of the Gothenburg stuff, which is basically fancy guitar playing.
Yeah.
And so that was the first part of it. The vocals are the second part, and the mix was the third part. We wanted to have kind of the old school sound and not use all the computer generated sounds with the drums and like all the effects on the vocals. So it sounds more 90-ish, 80-ish, if you will. And drums are a huge part of that. I really like natural drum sounds, being able to hear all the cymbals and the hi-hat and all that.
Sure. You just answered one of my next questions about the production of the new album. It seemed like it was, very old school sounding still, or it was raw, but it was modernized without that compression feel.
Yes.
And I think that's why it sounded like the next Atrophy album. You guys didn't go in a direction that wasn't Atrophy.
Right. I didn't want to go in any other direction except which was that natural next step. We would have gotten, in my opinion, the guitar players would have gotten better. The drumming would have gotten better. The singing would have gotten better. It's just that natural next step for me, at least.
Yeah. Let's go back a little bit to the lyrics. The 2 songs we heard, Seeds of Sorrow, sounds like it's just the next, it's what happened from Violent by Nature. It seems like it's the progression from one song to the next. This is what was created like a long time ago, and this is the result we're seeing today.
Man, you hit it perfect on the head.
Nice.
So, back when we wrote the song, Chris wrote the lyrics for that, and the album cover displays what happens when, and the song does, when children play with weapons. And now, after the Brady bill expired, all these companies, even Walmart, started selling AR-15s. They were very inexpensive with laser sights. They're deadly accurate. And, those were introduced into the public's hands. And there's no blame in this. This is our country. This is, but this is what happens. And, one of the lines of this killing spree has just begun. As I was writing the lyrics, I'm literally looking at the TV. Oh, there's another mass shooting.
Yeah.
And there's a line in there, 21 are dead, and they're still counting. And that's when those police refuse to go into the school and do anything about it. Like, this guy's in there. He's a present threat. and you guys aren't going in there to do something?
Yeah, and that was in
Like,
Texas, right? That was
yes,
the
sir.
yeah, I
Yeah,
remember that.
absolutely cowardly. When you're this is one man. You go in there with a team, you'll take them down. You're going to take them down.
Yeah,
So I was kind of disgusted with the whole, uh, where we are and how violent we seem to be. You know, society is so much better than it was in the 40s and the 50s, and
yeah,
it's pretty chill, and you know, you don't have to go out and kill for your food, and it seems like we have all these great things, but people are more mentally unstable than ever before, and we're seeing the result of that now, unfortunately.
yeah. That's why I'm a firm believer in music saved my life. So I want to make sure I share it with with Eli here that it was something I put my focus into when I was young. That interest that wasn't being malicious,
It,
running
it,
the roads and
it,
drinking and stuff like that.
I was actually just thinking of that, what you just said today. How I was, I had all this energy and I had all this pent up, probably anger. And then when I got into music, it was such a beautiful release.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've been an artist when I was younger, just art in general, to be able to release some of that and show people that, life isn't just about working, 18-hour days and coming home and spending a few hours with your kids if you're lucky. Uh, there's, art just makes everything kind of beautiful to me,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah. And I grew up a really poor kid. So, I latched on to the anger and the aggression of the music. And it just like what I felt every day was being shared with other people like yourself who was coming out and like, we're frustrated too. We're angry too. And here's
Yeah.
what we're going to do about it.
Yeah.
So Punishment for All is the other song we heard. And right off the bat, both Eli and I, when we heard it, were chanting the chorus, just connected to us,
Oh,
and
nice.
I could just picture that Punishment for All was just created for a live audience.
Oh my God, that's awesome. You said that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if those kind of things are built into your writing. If you think about what this is going to sound live, or if it's just it just comes out as a product of the music.
So I have a very different pattern of writing than most thrash musicians. What I hear is they'll just sing, and there's no melody to the vocals, and they just try to sing.
Yeah.
It's just kind of monotone. So I try to sing in key with what the guitar player is doing naturally. And then the other thing is when I heard the song, I said, "Oh my God, Mark, I don't know if you know this, but you just wrote an anthem."
Yeah.
I said, I can hear the whole entire crowd going, "Punishment." And
Yeah.
when the second chorus came around, we just played a show with Violence, our little mini tour down in Central America with Violence, Hyrax, and Exhorter. By the second chorus, they were singing it, and the
Nice.
song hadn't even come out yet. I'm
Nice.
just like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. That's definitely I think people are gonna, and there's a throughout thrash. I mean, off your second album, there was Violent by Nature was the same type of thing. I think Sepultura was pretty good about doing that. I could picture a couple of their songs that came out, and I was like, oh, the whole crowd's gonna be jumping during this part, and so
Oh, yeah.
definitely when I heard that song Punishment for All from you guys, I was like, oh, this is the sing along part.
Cool.
So who are the guys in the band now? And I know you didn't have a permanent drummer before. Have you found a permanent drummer? And is he a permanent drummer and a touring drummer, or is he just going to be like a studio guy?
So the drummer that played on the album is Jonas Schutz, and he's from Germany. And I had written a song outside of Atrophy, and I had him play on it. And Mark had an album called Condemn the Dream, and he had Jonas play on that. And when I heard his drumming and the drum tones that were coming off, he was, I originally was thinking Tim might play on this. But when I heard Jonas play, he's so technical. He's a drum teacher, and he has a drum studio in his basement. I knew he was the guy to do this. So let me see, Nathan. We were in the middle of writing the album, and he saw a picture of me and Mark standing there, and he said, "Well, geez, if there's nobody else in the band," he messaged me on Facebook, and I kind of laughed at him. He's 34 years old, and he is a thrash fanatic. He went to a music institute, and they used to look up old bands from the 80s and 90s. And he said, "Man, if you want a guitar player, I'd love to play with you guys." And I heard some of his stuff, and I'm like, wow, he's a virtuoso. I would love to have that on the album.
Yeah.
And so Josh was actually a latecomer because we were in the studio with Bill Matoyer, who did not produce the album, but we were doing some trial mixes with him. And he came in, and when I heard him play, I'm like, oh crap, we got to get at least 5 songs to him. So that's Josh Gibbs, and he also plays in Malevolent Creation.
Mm-hmm.
He's a phenomenal bass player. And let me see, that only leaves the other guy, and that's Mark. And the way I found him was through a mutual friend, and we never really wrote together except for one song. And I heard something off that one song, and I'm like, he's the guy, for helping write this next album. So he wrote, by the way, you asked me earlier, I did not write all the music or anything. He did. I did submit riffs to him, but when I hear his riffs, they're so much better and so much more technical. He just has a natural knack for this.
Nice. And he's got a knack for writing the Atrophy sound, right? So
yes, he does.
Those were Atrophy riffs through and through from the first 2 songs we heard, which was
absolutely
nice to hear. So not to get off track of what you're doing now, but some of the other band members are in a band called Scars of Atrophy.
Yeah.
Is there bad blood between you guys? And we don't have to go down this road if you don't want to, but or are they just like calling it Scars of Atrophy because they want to play like something different but still have a fan base that know Atrophy?
The second part.
Okay.
The second part you just said. So yeah,
it doesn't sound like anything. It doesn't sound like Atrophy, especially the vocals. Obviously, their new stuff that I heard. But they have on their album or demo cover, whatever. I could see the hat of the Jester coming through the door and stuff, I guess. So there's definitely leaning into the Atrophy name on it.
I think they did that all for the second part of what you said. I was writing with them after when COVID hit, and when I got the demo back from them, I just said, my God, this doesn't sound like Atrophy. I put vocals on it, and no matter how I approached it, I just couldn't get the hooks that you hear now. The other parts, nothing's changed in me, but we had a change in the lineup, and it made it very difficult. And so I think they hold some resentment that I didn't finalize everything with them, because I just couldn't. It had to be what you hear now, and when you hear the album, you'll understand. It sounds just like Atrophy, dude.
Yeah.
That's how it's supposed to sound,
Yeah, and that's why it usually doesn't work that way in my head. If a lot of members go and they do something, it's going to sound like the old band, and then if one member goes and does something else, it's going to sound a little bit different. But it was reversed with you guys. What you did and what you put together was Atrophy, and I think what they're doing, not talking shit about it or anything, but you're right, it's not Atrophy. It has no Atrophy sound to it.
No, and I think having no guitar player in the band and no vocalist, you just have drums. I don't know, but what you said the second time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's get back to the new ASYLUM album. I noticed on the album cover, it's the same Jester from the first album. Is it the same artist? And what's the story behind the Jester?
So the Jester is our mascot. His name is Jinx. And I'm going to be releasing some artwork after the album's released in, 13 days. And it'll tie all 3 albums together. So there's an Easter egg in the album, and it's for the fans to figure out. But so the whole concept of that was to bring him back because he's very, he's part of our band, since the beginning. And on the inner sleeve, he pulls his face off, and you see the skull. And we had that on our first T-shirt, actually, our tour T-shirt. And I just love the character, and I love the theory behind it because in one of the videos you'll see the theatrical mask. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah.
You'll see. So that there's a good theatrical mask, and so anyways, when you look at the album cover and when I release the artwork, you'll kind of see it all ties together in the ASYLUM. So
nice. And did you do the art for it? Is that your creation?
I created the artwork for it, and I had a mansion that I drew when I was, I don't know, maybe 18 or something. And, it's that old scary mansion looking thing. And so when we were writing the last song in the album, 5 Minutes to Suicide, one of the lines in it is the open air asylum, which is LA, New York, where you see all these homeless encampments. We got a lot of mental health problems here. That's when I really came up with the idea to, and the jester is supposed to be calling you into the asylum, and one of the characters is going to come back from Violent by Nature, and you'll see that, and
nice.
It all come together.
Yeah, very cool. So what's up next for Atrophy? When are you touring, if there's tour plans, and most importantly, when are you coming to Tampa? Because that's where we are.
Oh, wow. Josh lives down there as well.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, we had talked about doing something down in Tampa. So we kind of find ourselves in a weird situation here because we got back from Central America, and the guys were talking about replacing our drummer, and that's very difficult for me to do. But anyways, yeah, we had a West Coast booked in July, August, and then September. The East Coast, I don't know if those dates are still going to happen, but we want to get out and definitely tour this album. We want to get over to Europe again, and try to do all 3 this year, to tour the album. And we have 7 songs, I believe, written for the new album. Not fully, but we're working on 7 songs.
Nice.
So we're going to pump out another one here.
Very cool.
Yeah. Speaking of the tour, how are you going to balance playing all the old school Atrophy songs with the new songs from the ASYLUM album?
So when we played down in Central America, we played 2 new songs, and we played the 2 that got released. And we want to introduce a 3rd song, and probably going to be High Anxiety. And with any band, once you go out, people are going to tell you what they want to hear. And so we play both albums. Our set list is actually heavily off the first album, Killing Machine, Chemical Dependency, Urban Decay, Killing Machine, and Beer Bong.
Nice.
And then
Beer Bong.
The rest is off Violence, and Beer Bong is always the last song because it's so fun to play.
Yeah, it's a fun song.
And the crowd goes crazy for it. So
yeah, the beers are some left to be desired, right?
Yeah.
And most of those brands aren't around anymore, too.
So those were intended to be all the cheapest beer you could possibly buy when you're in college, and they're so bad you have to drink them in a beer bong because you didn't want to taste them.
Yeah,
exactly. And no, they're not. There are very few of those brands are around.
Yeah. Funny. So last question we have for you, and this is kind of putting you on the spot. March is Women's History Month, and we at the Pod are trying to promote women-led or women in hard music and metal and stuff. So we're trying to do a post a day of bands that reflect women are doing thrash, they're doing death. Did you have any bands that women are in that you wanted us to promote, or you want to talk about here, or
look up Condemn the Dream.
Condemn the Dream.
That's Mark's other band that he had, and he has a female singer on that. Just listen to the first track and check it out. It's really good stuff, man.
Awesome. We will do that then. What's the best way people can support Atrophy? What can they do?
So go to Facebook and Instagram and just give us a like. That would be huge. And if you're out, please buy merchandise.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way we see revenue anymore. And hopefully we'll have some new merch out in the month, and we'll put that up on Facebook too.
Yeah. Whenever we go to shows, we make it a point definitely to support the band. Yeah. And
buy the records, buy the CD,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Brian. It's been great. Again, I'm a little, like I said, a little giggly talking to you. You've been one of the favorites for a very long time. We are definitely listening to pumping those new songs out every car ride and in the house when we can. So nice. I appreciate your time. This will probably drop Monday, and I'll be sharing it on Facebook, and I'll let you know when it comes out.
I'm trying to, I'll drop an interview every couple of days till the album's released. So okay. I'll put it up on our Facebook page.
I appreciate it.
And I wish you guys the best. Good job, Eli.
Thanks.
Take care, Brian. Hope to see you soon.
Nice shirt. I like that.
Thanks.
You bet. Talk to y'all later. Bye.